So as you guys can see today, we have with us a group of 5 players that focuses on very different aspects of the combat in the Secret World. The masked guy with the sledgehammer will play the role of a tank for this dungeon run. He's focusing on high armor mitigation and aggro management. The girl in the pink trench coat will be our healer, focusing on something called blood magic to keep these guys alive, hopefully. The guy with the assault rifle is focusing on high-powered bullets and also some AoE grenade. He will function as a ranged DPS character with some crowd control. The guy to the right is focusing on magic, elementalism to be specific, some fire spells. Our hero character is wielding a hammer, but is focusing more on the high damage output that the hammer provides. This little group now is going to venture forth and investigate.
All right, so when we're designing these content areas, we're thinking about, what's the purpose of every placement in this game. So this is the first trash pool. Again, like, we try to avoid having trash unless it has a meaning. In this case, you're fighting a Draug who's got some zombies around him. This is very important because whenever you encounter Draug in our game, you'll always encounter zombies as well. Now, the Draug themselves, if you want to dig into the legends of that, the Draug are actually the spirits of drowned Viking warriors. And so we're going to move forward now and show you how these mechanics keep getting played out through the game.
And when we teach players these mechanics that they need to worry about.
Body of water contains potentially lethal electrical current.
Exactly. This is another thing. Like, when we teach the players something like that, it's not only true for this isolated incident, it's true for the whole game. In this particular case, it's electrified water. When the player is standing in the water, he's taking a massive amount of damage, so he needs to really stay away from that when he's fighting this Draug sorceress.
Alright, so a quick word on what she is. The Draug sorceress is one of the females of the Draug race, obviously, and they're responsible for the creation of new Draug. And the way that they do that is they actually mutate zombies, and over time those zombies will eventually turn into Draug themselves.
She fights with Draug magic. You can see from time to time she's protected by this white barrier. This is a barrier that the players can counter with certain effects that they brought. She's also spawning these thunderclouds at certain areas in this arena that the players really need to stay away from because they deal a lot of damage while keeping out of the electrical water. So this creates a really nice and dynamic fight. As you probably also can see, the players can move while casting abilities.
Alright, so the player just got a skill point. If you saw that there, the skill points are something that you spend later on to get abilities, and we'll talk a little more about that later. But right now we're going to head on up the cliff top. I just want to point out that, again, as we approach our world design in these environments, we think about not only like the 2D space moving forward through a corridor, as a lot of games do, we also think about, the 3D location, letting people move vertically, up and down, side to side, all the way through this entire 3D area.
Analysis. Highly volatile biological material. Avoid close proximity.
Another thing that we're using to teach the players. Whenever the players encounter this Draug pod and they stand next to it for too long, it starts to pulse. And after a while, it explodes, dealing a lot of damage and also a knockback. But if the players are quick enough to damage them down before they get to explode, they should be all safe.
Alright, so we're coming up on the top of the cliff now. And here's where you really get to see how we take the visuals that we can get out of a modern setting and make them work in a location such as this. So here you have the wreckage of the cargo ship that crashed into the shore here. Debris strewn all over the place.
Identification. Cargo vessel Polaris. Reported lost in Atlantic Ocean August 14, 2007.
Alright, so if I'm going to root this in story and let you guys know, everybody's heard of the not the urban legend, but the actual myth of ghost ships. Everybody's heard about ghost ships. The Polaris is an actual ghost ship in our game. Everything is true. In this case, the Polaris disappeared 4 years ago, came back on the radar recently, crashed into this island, had a cargo of Draug. The Draug have started to convert the island into their base of operations as they take on the residents of Solomon Island, as you saw earlier. And what's happening in the game, part of the overall storyline, is that Earth herself, Gaia, is fighting back against the darkness. And this is an example of one of those mechanics.
Yeah, this is actually Gaia who has opened up an anima well. At anima wells, the players can access the anima magic, and what that allows players is to open the skill wheel. In the skill wheel, there are over 500 unique abilities. and the player can train and own all of them. In here you find everything from elementalism to shotguns to pistols to swords to chaos magic to blood magic, everything. And every single little cell you see around here contains several abilities. So what our hero character learned in the first fight was that ranged players were at an advantage because they were able to stay out of the water and still do damage to the sorceress. So what he's doing right now is changing his hammer abilities for some elementalist abilities. The elementalist abilities lets the player damage from afar, throwing out magic and shocking players with lightning. And this is a really important aspect of the Secret World. It's about adapting to your surrounding, not being locked down to a class or to a role.